IPMNation.com.
Live from the Outpost Studios in Columbus, Ohio, you're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Brought to you by IPMNation.com. Get ready for the gong heard round the world.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, you got to be a little quicker than that when you think it's a gong.
All Natural Being. Warning, All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Welcome. Good evening. Thank you for stopping by the number one rated show here on IPMNation.com. Episode 265 of The Gong Heard Round the World. As Matt just said a moment ago, you're in to All Natural Being. Broadcast as it happens here on IPMNation.com. And for Fly on the Wall video, you can stay right here on Facebook, live from the Outpost Studios in Columbus, Ohio, however you're getting the signal, with rebroadcast on iTunes and iHeartRadio. Greetings wherever you are, here in the Garden of the Mortals, top of the day, from the truest parts of your mind. Because life, it's your labyrinth. You're shot right now at running the table. That's why we're always putting your heart's highest priority top of the list. Always placing your primal scream front and center in your life, reinstalling and reinstating your true wisdom, your true wit of your inner whisper. It's time to reboot your robust and to find your ferocious, to outbrutal the brutal that is the cut and shuffle that fate deals you on a daily basis, and to bring your own bold once and for all. But before we hit it this evening, hello to my friends here in the United States and family. Canada, Mexico, the UK, my good friends in Ecuador, China, the Philippines, Brazil, India, Australia, Germany, Italy, Japan, Turkey, France, Singapore, Sweden, Israel, South Africa, Puerto Rico, Kenya, the Netherlands. To those joining us from all over the globe, it truly is great to have you with us, to be your virtual hitchhiker. And I'm truly fired up tonight to be driving your bandwagon, to be your biggest fan, to be avidly you. Let me ask you, are you tired of being institutionalized by the intentions of others, convicted by the constructs of another, remanded to their prison of rhetoric? Me too. That's why it's time. It's time to mortal up. So what do you say? Let's go kick in some doors. You know, I've been thinking a lot about that lately. This whole thing of being institutionalized by the intentions of others, right? Of being convicted by the constructs of another. And when you think about it, a lot of the things that we believe, we believe true in our lives, we find that they really are the constructs, things that have happened to us based on other people's opinions. And it's kind of plagiarized in a way when you think about it. We're kind of to that point where we borrow other people's opinions of what life is all about, most certainly what our life should be about. And then we wake up one day and you go, wait a minute, this isn't what I bargained for. Well, I didn't want that to happen. And then you go, well, what are you going to do? Right? We went ahead and had our heads hijacked by the committee vote. And it happens all the time. But sooner or later, one day, you go, you know what? Why do I feel so disgruntled? Why do I feel so disconnected from life? Why is it that why do I feel institutionalized? Why do I feel convicted? What are other people going to say when it comes to putting your heart's highest priority top of your list, and you go, oh, I couldn't do that because I don't want to offend this one, or I don't want to hurt this one, or I don't want these people to feel bad about me? Then what happens when you put your heart's highest priority? Instead of top of your list, you put it in the back drawer, you put it on the back burner. What then happens to your inner smile? So this evening, I'd like to focus just on that. And if you want to go ahead, give me a call, 614-741-4187, 614-741-4187. As we joked last night, standard rates, whatever that means, standard rates, whatever they are, standard rates apply, 614-741-4187. We'll be able to hang out here. Let me check this. We'll be able to hang out here and kick around this particular idea. You know, I said in the tease, first let me do this. Let me say hello to Janile and to John. Thank you so very much. And to Sue B. McCann. Thank you. Alan Black, thank you for joining us here. And Kelly, thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. I said in the tease earlier today, you know, a lot of people think, Greek myths, what's that going to do to improve my health? An ancient Greek myth, how is that going to extend my longevity? How could that very well save my life? So I thought I would share a Greek myth with you, one that's been very important to me in all these years going up, and most certainly a Greek myth. Thank you, John, very much. Thank you for the critique, and thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. Thank you, Kelly. I'm glad it's not so hectic tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. I wanted to share with everyone a myth, a Greek myth that has always meant a good deal to me. And if you're not familiar with the myth of Antaeus, he's half god, half human, right? I think his maybe he's a full god, I don't know, but his father's Poseidon, which means if his father's Poseidon and his mother is Gaia, or Mother Earth, he must be full-on god. So he's not even a demigod, he's a full-on god. And he's busy wrestling people. Anyone pops by? Alan Black, thank you very much. I'm glad to have you here. Thank you, brother, very much. So anyone that stumbles by, Antaeus decides, oh, you and I should mix it up, right? So he was the first one to perfect ground and pound. So he'd wrestle all these people, get them to the ground, pound them into submission, and then crush them. So he was like 457,000 to 0. Never lost a match. And then, if you know the myth, you know, Hercules comes along. And Hercules, you know, he's got the 12 labors, swing, whiff, yawn, right? But on his way to Hesperides, which are going to be number 12, number 11 on his list is he's got to mix it up with Bobby Badass, the Greeks called Antaeus. So he decides he's going to have to wrestle him. But what's he going to do? He's Hercules. He's got to get to number 12. He can't afford, right, to be one of the ones added to the long list of people that get ground, pounded, and just crushed into the dust. So what does he decide to do? Hercules, using his wherewithal, right, his mental wit and wisdom, decides, oh, you know what I'll do? I think he gets his strength. He's a lot like, who was it? What's the guy's name? Samson, right? Gets his strength from his hair. So if you can reach in and cut Samson's hair, maybe he's not so strong. Well, Hercules figures out, and he goes, wow, you know, this guy really, that's a hell of a record he's got going there. But Antaeus, there's got to be a way to beat him. So what does Hercules do? If you know the myth, Hercules goes in, grabs him, picks him up off the ground, right? Doesn't let him come in contact with the ground, therefore robbing him. He doesn't allow him to come in contact with his connection, with his normal strength, which in this case was Gaia, his mother, the earth. Because he wasn't in contact with the earth, there go all of his superpowers. So Hercules is able to beat him, and he holds him up into the air and he crushes him. So the reason I belabored the point a little bit is to say to you that not unlike Antaeus, you and I have our all-natural being. And our environment comes along and says, look, this is a scavenger hunt. Gotta love the fact that you have your all-natural being, but I'm fate, right? And the environment works for fate, and I'm fate, and I'm going, look, I'm on a scavenger hunt. I'm going to do anything I can to rob you of your mental and physical health. So what do? Just like Hercules, they decide, okay, fate decides, let's hold them up away from their connection to who they ultimately are. Let's hold them away from their connection of their ultimate strength. And there's nothing about the fight between Hercules and Antaeus that says Antaeus lost his power because he was searching for something, or Hercules searched for something and found some unique widget or bauble or trinket that would help him in defeating Antaeus. No, that wasn't it at all. He was simply able to separate him from his true power. So if you've been following all this time, what do we say? It was episode 265 of All Natural Being. If you've been following along, I know Sue will attest to it. I know for sure John will, probably Janile, maybe even Alan. But if you've been following along, you know that I believe that that's buried within you. Just as Antaeus knew that if he stayed connected to the earth, he was unstoppable. You connect to your all-natural being, you're unstoppable. You connect to ultimately who you truly are. You're unstoppable because I believe the universe dovetails. And then in that particular moment in all of time, it opens doors where you just got to go, man, I didn't see that coming. So when I think back about that myth, what is it that you do? What are those efforts in your life that seem Herculean, where it tries to separate you from who you ultimately are, who you truly are? Right? And we know now the ego, the keeper of relics, it loves the idea of institutionalizing your all-natural being because it goes, well, you know, the intentions of these other people, they want you to do A, B, C, or D. So then you and I end up convicted by the constructs of another, right? Because they say, this is what life is supposed to be all about. This is how it's going to go. And then we grow contrary to our heart's highest calling. We grow contrary to that still small voice, that whisper. So I go back to this myth from time to time and ask, what is it that's separating me? If I truly believe that there's dirt in our DNA, and I do, what is it that separates us? What is that detaches us from the earth? If you're Antaeus, what is it that detaches us from those superhuman powers, from that all-natural being? And it's the ego. It's the rhetoric that we talked about. You're remanded to a prison of rhetoric where everyone else gets a committee vote. The Meshuggah of the marketplace gets to dictate what you do with your life. And true, we suffer the slings and arrows to throw a little Shakespeare in, right? Because you're thinking, oh, wow, it's Wednesday night. Why wouldn't we mix in Shakespeare with an ancient Greek myth, right? But you throw a little bit of that and you go, hey, we're all going to suffer the slings and arrows. But what we're responsible for is the counterpunch. And the counterpunch would have been, in this particular myth, for Antaeus to stay grounded to his strength. Well, for you and I today, we know that we can stay grounded to that strength. And what is that? That's our all-natural being. That's who we truly are at our core. And that even though our environment, fate, our ego is on one big scavenger hunt for the very best parts, philosophically and physiologically, the very best parts of the human being, you and I know that we can rally to the cause of remembering who we ultimately are. And, you know, someone had said to me, good evening to Candace. Thank you for joining us here on All Natural Being. Someone had said to me in a conversation today that we were talking last evening about enlightenment. I say, we're already enlightened. We're just running around with welder's goggles on, right? We're already, everyone says, oh, I got to learn meditation because it would be good to be enlightened. We're all already enlightened. We just have blinders on to it, running around with our heads wrapped in bubble wrap. And that true meditation, in order for it to be a benefit to you, true meditation can go down in just absolute chaos. I equated it to being at the CTA, the elevated stop in Chicago Transit Authority. Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock, 1 million people, all clamoring to get on one sliding door onto a train track, right, or to the train on the track. You can meditate there, then you've learned it. And I said in this debate, hello, Candace, nice to see you, my friend. I said in this debate that if you have to go on a mountaintop, if you have to go in a cave, and I've been to both, if you have to go far out into the desert, been there, if you have to go out into the middle of nowhere in order to be able to reconnect with who you truly are, you've already missed the boat. It's in the tumult. It's in the din and clatter. It's with the vice, right, barking, nipping at your heel, that when you can remember in that moment who you ultimately are, right away, you're done. Because that's the enlightenment, the ability to be able to stand there no matter what fate throws at you, instead of volunteering to become a hothead wrapped in a hair lip, right? Or, right, which I've referred to myself more times than not, but a hothead wrapped in thin skin, Freudian slip, or a hothead wrapped in thin skin. We can say, no, I'm not going to let the rhetoric ricochet around in my mind and ruin my day. So again, I ask, if you're Antaeus, what is it that you allow to separate you from your ultimate strength, your ultimate drive, your ultimate enlightenment? What separates you from that? And then ultimately, why do you let it happen? You know, we did a little hashtag called Mortal Clarity. Mortal Clarity. You've seen the hashtag before where we do Mortal Up. It's a pretty great gig being here in the labyrinth of life, the garden of the mortals, as I refer to it. But then why is it that we allow fate to derail us? How is it that going through life in a watered-down version seems to make sense to any of us? And what is it that we're waiting for? How is it that we have to come about getting permission to be who we are in a very primal sense? You know, I saw an article today from a psychologist who said, some of the smartest, most successful people in the world are the people that are a little more narcissistic than everyone else, but just below being a clinical narcissist. Like as if you're a clinical narcissist, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. But in any event, when we talk about 20-minute victories, when we talk about 1/72nd of your day, one slice of the pie, what would it take then for you to be a little narcissistic? For you to be, right? Everyone says, oh, you got to be altruistic. You know, you got to watch out for everyone else. Yeah, but if you're not narcissistic first, you won't have any energy left to be altruistic. If you're not a little, right? We talk all the time that a healthy sense of ego is a diminished sense of self. But if you remember who you ultimately are, and what comes with that is your ability to launch a counterpunch no matter what fate throws at you. Everyone running around today talking about fake news. Well, the truth of the matter is, as a mortal, we've got a pretty great gig when we decide, yes, in fact, there is dirt in our DNA. Yes, we are connected in a way to our all-natural being. And if we don't permit anyone to separate us, we're Antaeus before the fall, before we lose to Hercules. Candace says, people say they want to move and start a new life. I don't understand that. That's just geography. I'm absolutely with you, Candace. I like the adventure of it, but remember the original version of the Latin word adventure, aventura, means something about to happen. But you're absolutely right. I have people that go, oh, you got to go up on the top of the mountain. Maybe it's left over from Moses' days, right? Or Buddha, right, going into the forest. Or Muhammad going into a cave, right? Lao-Tzu, the open grassy plain. Jacob, he's going to the fjord. But all those things are metaphors for the geography is within you. Yeah, so people say to me all the time, well, Brad, I just need to change the scenery. Great, then close your eyes. Through all the tumult, through all the chaos, through everything going on to distract you, that's when you get to learn true meditation. Because ultimately, all it is, even through all the distractions, I love that. It's a bird squawking, right? Through all the distractions, you're able to remember who you ultimately are, and just as importantly, everything that you're ultimately capable of. And when that happens, you're unstoppable. You're untouchable. Now, I'm not saying it's easy to do, right? We all have those challenges to it. But ultimately, we can stop running around being a human getting, looking for all these things that are going to inflate our sense of self. The ultimate inflation in a sense of self comes when you remember who you are. Not from buying into the ego's bidding of, you got to have this, you got to have that, you better get 2 of these and 6 of those and a half a dozen of these. True inspiration, true meditation, right? You can torque your back, you can learn yoga, you can learn all these postures, you can learn all these other things. But ultimately, what does it come down to? You alone, in your own skin, remembering who you ultimately are. And that's why I think, when we talk about gratitude being a great doorway, that you and I can just be thankful for having been dropped here in the garden of the mortals, having been dropped here in the labyrinth of life. And every time we wake up again, go, hey, I'm just thrilled to have an opportunity to run this table again, to run this labyrinth again. Candace says adventure makes people well-rounded, but doesn't change who you are. Absolutely, Candace. And you know why? What you take into the wilderness is pretty much what you find in the wilderness. Right? I've very seldom, and I've been blessed to go to some really cool places. I've very seldom found a place that when I was alone in the middle of that, I didn't have my baggage with me, right? The things that I was worried about the day before are still with me in those moments. Now, they're fleeting, and at times you can get them to go. I mean, look, you can't be at Yellowstone at 40 below zero, camping out in a tent and hear a pack of wolves just off in the distance, right? You can't be camping out in the middle of nowhere and hear a mountain lion and not have it quicken your pulse. And in those situations, you pretty much better remember pretty quickly who you are. But in every other situation, Candace is right. Adventure is going to make you well-rounded, but it doesn't change who you ultimately are. Because even better than that, Candace, right? I think you would agree. It can't change who you ultimately are. Because who you ultimately are is the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchild of the divine. That's why I love Odin's works. Right? When you think of Rodin, and a lot of people think, where's it? Oh, a lot of people think of Rodin. Hey, let me show you this one real quick. They think of the thinker. Remember the thinker? No, you probably can't see that there. You remember that. This is the one, right? The thinker. Remember that? Most people know that one, and they go, oh, yeah, I really love that. Well, same, Rodin, same author, does this one. And I love this one. And this one, now if I can get it off without knocking everything else off, this one I love because it's the hand of God molding out of the clay Adam and Eve. And what I like about that is it's always meant to me, I've always taken that to mean there's dirt in your DNA. That you come connected to the very superpowers. Same thing as Antaeus. You come connected to those very superpowers that allow you to be unstoppable. But what happens to us? What happens to us to separate us? Well, the ego happens. It outstays its welcome. Even though it's got an expired shelf life. It's like finding a gallon of milk in the fridge where it says, oh, that expired 6 months ago. Well, the milk's no good. Butter's no good. Whatever the expiration date, the born-on date, that's no good. Well, that's what happens to the ego when it sticks around forever and it constantly is trying to get. Instead of human being, we have human gettings, and we're constantly bombarded by carrots at the end of the stick, at goals, things that we're going to go after. So the thought that I would have for this evening is that for 20 minutes, 1/72nd of your day, what if you had no goals? Or you could say, what if your only goal was to listen to your heart's highest calling? Where would it take you? And people say all the time, oh, I need plans. I need a GPS unit. I got to have a map. I got to know where I'm going. And I think back to the nights, we talked about this, I think, early in the week, the nights of the Holy Grail. They entered the forest where there was no track nor path. They entered the forest where the way was lost. They entered the forest where it was dark and thickest. Because in that particular moment in all of time, when you're following your heart's highest priority, the universe dovetails and opens all kinds of doors. All kinds of situations. All kinds of occurrences. That's the synchronicity that Jung, the psychiatrist, Carl Jung, spoke of. That's the synchronicity. And what do you got to do to find your synchronicity? Listen to your heart's highest calling. And for 20 minutes, be a little selfish. For 20 minutes, right? Just for 20 minutes. Be a little narcissistic. Don't listen to the people that say, well, you constantly have to be thinking about everyone else around you, because then ultimately what happens? Everyone else is thinking about everybody else. And although that sounds like a good deal, no one realizes that there has to be a time for rejuvenation. There has to be a time to listen to your own heart. Alan Black says, he's absolutely right. Alan, thank you. The way we apply our heart to each situation. And I like the way you put that. It's because in that particular moment of all the time, the universe is offering you a piece of that jigsaw puzzle. And the way you apply listening to your heart's highest calling, the universe provides the other part of the Rubik's Cube, the other part of the jigsaw puzzle, the other little piece, the other little tip, the technique of the moment that allows you to succeed. Instead of always being worried about my goals, I'm going to be a human getting. I have to get this. I have to get that. What if in this particular moment of all of time, you're grateful for what you've already accomplished? Ultimately grateful for the truth of who you already are. Again, the great grandchild of the divine. There's dirt in your DNA. And it makes me think of martial arts. It makes me think of they said some of the times, they were just so grounded to the earth. They would go into that horse stance, or they would go into any of these different stances, and they're like feet that were just like cemented to the ground. Well, that's ultimately your connection to your all-natural being, your ability to pull off almost anything, your ability to do truly spectacular things. We say here on Facebook, to unleash your legendary. Absolutely agree with that. So you have to decide, what is it that allows you to be separated from your superpowers? Is it embarrassment? Is it worry? Maybe is it empathy for other people because they don't expose their superpowers to the light of day, that you're like, hey, they don't, so I won't, right? Don't want to rock the boat. But ask yourself, what is it that keeps me from tapping my natural resources? My grit, my agility, my stamina. What is it that prevents me from tapping my wild at the core? Thought of wild at the core. Tim, nice to see you, Tim. Tim Creasy, thank you for joining us. Built for the wild. I still love that. It's my favorite tagline. Built for the wild. We're all built for the wild. Why? Because it's a jungle in here. I'm not arguing that it's easy within a mind riddled with binge thinking to have to be so focused on everything that the ego, it's like a speed bag, right? No. The ego, it never shuts up. It never stops. It is a jungle in here. But the underlying operating system, as Antaeus knew, the underlying operating system was his connection to his strength. And don't let fate separate you from that connection. Because ultimately, I think that's what makes us miserable. Ultimately, I think that's when we look down on ourselves because we think there's got to be more than life than this. Yeah, absolutely. Because you're leaving your superhuman status in the backseat of the car. You're leaving it in the glove box. You left it on the top shelf at home when you went out the door. But when we remain connected, as Antaeus did, when we remain connected to that power, he was undefeated, and so will you be. So again, I ask, even if you don't answer me, answer yourself. What is it that separates you? What is holding you back? What is holding you back from tapping that superpower? Marcellus, good evening. Thank you for watching, sir. In honor of Marcellus being here, let me ask it another way. What is it that continually compels you to chop block your all-natural being? To cut yourself off at the pass? It was as if you were wrestling Hercules yourself and you said, I got to tell you, you want to win this little match? You want to win this little ground and pound? All you got to do is separate me from my superpowers. Well, it seems like that's what we're surrendering. We basically say to fate, yeah, you're right. I'm going to pack it in. I'll play it your way. And then we let the committee vote decide what we're going to do. We listen, right? Talk about troll alert. We listen to all the trolls in our lives. Walking, talking pits of quicksand. Venus flytraps with legs. The trolls saying, you can't do this. You can't do that. That'll never work. And you remain disconnected from the very energy that will propel you to your heart's highest calling. So as we get ready to wrap up this evening, I'd just like you to think about that, whether it's philosophically or physiologically, your immune system. I'm working on a project now where we talk about your natural immune system. Your body's ability to withstand almost anything really is legendary. When I talk about unleash your legendary, it's the sense of who you ultimately are, yes, but you're also your natural resources. And that philosophically and physiologically, we're immune from a lot of the mashugana. We're immune from a lot of the pathogens, from a lot of the toxins, even philosophical pathogens and toxins. We're immune to those. We let them in. Ingestion is a multidimensional kind of thing. You ingest through what you eat, through what you inhale. We talk all the time about the dangers of secondhand cigarette smoke. How about the dangers of secondhand opinions? What we ingest through our ears, what we ingest through our minds. We'll worry all day long about our guts, but our gray matter, it's on its own. Who thinks that makes sense? So when it comes to the things that you and I ingest, why can't we just say, no, I'm drawing the line in the sand right here. I'm done with this. I'm going to channel my all-natural being. I'm going to believe in my ability to pull off almost anything. And I'm going to reconnect with who I ultimately am. And that's how I'll unleash my legendary. All right, we're going to go ahead and get ready to get out of here. Thank you all so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being. We'll be back tomorrow evening. Again, we're all kinds of cool things we're working on, all kinds of cool things we're getting ready to ramp up, and I'll fill you in on some more of those tomorrow evening as well. But thank you so very much. Thank you, Marcellus. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Candace. Thank you, Kelly and Janile. Thank you, Sue, as always. Thank you, John. Thank you so very much for joining us here at All Natural Being. We will see you tomorrow evening. Again, thanks for everything. We'll see you soon.
IPMNation.com.